Hi everybody, welcome to the Dojo channel. I have a lot of really good questions that have been written to me off of YouTube, and I don't have the time to answer each one by writing, so I thought I would choose a few that are very common that I would answer now video form, because people tend to like that format a little bit better. So these are actual questions from our YouTube channel, where we have well over 100 videos on our martial art in our school here in southwestern Ohio. If I don't answer your question to the best of my ability, just understand that I'm still learning myself. I've been teaching and training for 35, approaching 40 years now, so I'm still always a student first, teacher second. Matthew Espinosa writes regarding your fast draw sword video. He says, what happens when you go against someone who has a different or better skill with one, and plus an actual sword fight is never the same as a demonstration? There are many different outcomes or possibilities. So what Matthew's asking is, what happens when what he noticed in the video is we're only showing one particular way to deal with danger as far as going sword against sword. And he asked, what if you fight someone who moves differently or has better skill than the person in the video who is attacking you? It's a very common question. You just have to understand that that's just one possibility of an infinite amount of movements. What I'm showing in that particular class on that particular night at that particular moment is just one very small kata, one small piece. You have to learn the kata in 3 different ways. The first time you learn it, you have to learn the mechanics. So I have someone very simply cut down with Daijodan or Hasso or wherever they're cutting from. I show one possible Tai Sabaki body movement. I show one possible parry or evasion of some sort and one possible cut. We don't possibly have the time or the manpower or the battery life to go into 15 or 20 different possibilities. Those come with later training, later class time. So Matthew, to answer your question, the answer is, of course you would move different ways if they moved a different way. We would adapt on the fly, and that's what our katas are built for. The more you study swordsmanship or unarmed combat, and the more mat time you spend, the more abilities you have to create on the fly to defend yourself against skilled people and unskilled people both. We practice, believe me, Matthew, 1,000 different ways to do things, but what you're seeing is one small piece. If I have a book here, what Matthew's asking is, which kata are you doing? We're doing one little page of one little piece of kata. The martial art of Budo itself is to develop the ability to be an entire book of knowledge. So if he does this with his sword, and he moves here, and he strikes, and he pulls out something different, or he parries you, or he jumps back, takes out a grenade, whatever it is, we'll have the answer later in the training. But for now, each class, we only have a limited amount of time. So for me to teach 15 different ways of doing something, I just don't have the time. And the students aren't advanced enough to learn that. So that we're just doing one little paragraph of one little page of one little book of Budo. It's interesting to know, but it's very common, but if you train regularly, you would know the answer to that already, which is, we can't answer every possible scenario. Jakers2693 writes, I found out that the character for martial art translates as to stop violence. I thought that was cool. Jakers, you're right. The character for martial arts, the Bu of Budo, means to stop a spear. So people always assume that martial arts are about fighting. With the MMA stuff that's become popular in the last 2 decades, martial arts has kind of shifted from traditional into sports. There's nothing wrong with that. I love to see martial arts evolve. I love to see martial arts being challenged with the times. But the character for martial arts, Bu of Do, Do is the way of something, Bu is to stop war. So martial arts is about actually stopping violence, not creating it. It's very ironic. It's paradoxical, because we train all day long in order to stop violence, even though we become very good at creating violence or ripping violence apart to understand the principles of it, our highest level, our highest motive is to stop violence, to become the peacemakers of the world. And as soon as violence breaks, we immediately take action as quickly, as swiftly as possible to stop the violence without people getting hurt if possible. So you're right, martial arts means stopping violence. Jorge Martinez writes, are you still part of the Bujinkan? Yes, is the answer. Although I have ranking in Bujinkan, in Toshindo, in Karate, I am friends with everybody. Technically, my dojo here and my several hundred students, we are not part of any organization. I broke away from all organizations about 15 years ago. Mr. Hayes is still a very good friend of mine. He's still considered my teacher, a teacher, and I have many seniors in the Bujinkan, and I have many students in the Bujinkan. So I'm one of those odd. Now I'm an odd person because I'm not part of a technical organization. I'm kind of a hybrid between modern and new. I respect everyone in each, whether it's the Bujinkan, Jinenkan, Genbukan. I have really good friends in each. I have been approached by many high-level Shihan to come back, even and sometimes to bribe me with a rank of some sort, to go back into this section or that organization, and I have no interest in doing that. I broke away from these organizations out of my own accord because I wanted to do things a certain way, and I wasn't happy with the way certain organizations were going, or perhaps they were giving rank out too easily. I saw the standards being watered down. So I have great respect for all martial arts organizations, but if you get ranking here, it's ranking through this school only. It's not part of a large organization. I will be heading back to Japan this winter to see Hatsumi Sensei again and to get more involved in the Bujinkan lineage. I can give out rank in Bujinkan and Toshindo to a certain black belt level, but if you're going to get rank through me and my school, it's much tougher than those other organizations. Karasu HD2 asks about the sword cleaning video. He says, never touch the blade with your hand. I learned that early on before my dad got me my first katana. But something I never learned was when sheathing, I see people guiding the blade into the sheath with their hand, fingers, or the back of their hand. Is this considered wrong? My answer is no. Karasu HD. There are many ways to sheath a sword. And some schools are very anal about this. It really depends on who your teacher is and what your lineage is. I've seen, I'm not kidding, 6 different ways of putting your sword back. I'm of the philosophy of I don't care. If the bad guy is dead, which is our goal in this case of Kenjutsu, I don't care how you put the sword back. You have the time. You don't have to put it back in some stylized manner. After you do the chiburi, the blood removal, I don't care if you put it across your skin. Some people try to use their nails. However your teacher teaches you, go with that. That's the way he or her learned. I don't care how you put it back. There are right ways to put it back practically, where I don't want to put the sword back so that I cut my saya open. And of course I don't want to do it this way where I cut my skin. I want to keep the spine of the blade always down in this case. But as far as putting it back, that type of noto practice is very detail-oriented, and I'm not as much about the details because I just don't care. I care about practicality. Does it function? So to me, if the guy is dead, I don't care if you clown around before you put your sword away. Who cares? That's just my opinion. Again, I give it to your teacher. Ask your teacher these questions. But as far as I'm concerned, I do the traditional method of going across the webbing of my hand between the thumb and the index finger here. I don't care as much about the nails or anything. You can clean your blade after. Dusty, YTSUD, also regarding the sword cleaning. He said, a sword cleaning kit is pretty much a gimmick. I've used coffee filters and microfiber cloth to clean my swords. He's used cloth to wipe away debris, coffee filters to apply the oil. As for the cleaning itself, he suggests alcohol is perfect. He can get that at his pharmacy. Alcohol removes moisture. As for the oil, he just uses thick motor oil. He says, I cut regularly and I've never had a blade rust. That's fine. I mean, I suggest, Dusty, to keep doing what you're doing. If it works, great. I buy the sword cleaning kits, but I agree with you. You don't have to have a sword cleaning kit. Paper towel works. Don't use Windex. It really depends on, again, the quality of your blade. If you have a cheap stainless steel blade, go ahead and use Windex and paper towel. If you have a heck of a nice blade, I wouldn't risk putting something that isn't labeled sword oil on it. I've never heard of using motor oil. I guess that would work, depending on the viscosity of it. But yeah, do your own thing. Try it out. It's your sword. You clean it however you want. But the purpose of that video was to show that sword maintenance, like gun maintenance and anything else, is important, because your sword, if left unchecked, will rust in the saya. Especially nowadays with the humidity. If you cut a lot, you must clean your sword right after. Another question, 71 Digiboy Tolerance writes of training partners. He writes, I enjoy training at my dojo and I consider them my family. I hope they feel the same about me. However, I'm quite intolerant of people in general, so I will try and take this philosophy and be more understanding of other people I meet in the world. Thanks for the video. I think what he's writing is he doesn't like people in general. That's interesting. You know, that video about working with our training partners was about tolerance. It's a deeper lesson, not just about who I'm working with on the mat at the dojo, but who I work with at work, at home. If you're a person that just doesn't like people, you're always going to have trouble in life. Life will not be simple for you. We are surrounded by 6-7 billion people now. We are going to be crowded. We are going to have people in our lives left and right. Whether you love them or not is irrelevant. They're going to be there. So that video was about trying to be more tolerant of other people. Because what happens is when you don't build a tolerance for people around you, you tend to hate people. You build walls. You divide yourselves. You alienate people from your beliefs. And that brings about nothing but fear and doubt and anger and a mistrust of other people. Believe me, I've tried that when I was very young. It does not work. The more you can embrace the people around you and kind of laugh and enjoy people for all their foibles and faults, and just understand that I'm one of a million, one of a billion, you start being less selfish and more self-helping for other people. I realize that we're like a community of ants, and all of us are working toward a common cause, and that is to keep the world alive, to learn things and to pass them on to the next generation. So I can't agree with not being tolerant of people. To me, it just doesn't work. You can try it, but chances are you're going to end up a very lonely person. I would change that. Takeshi Miyagi writes about the sword video. I am impressed, he said. The sword techniques are very similar to ours. Yeah, a lot of sword stuff that I teach comes from many different places. They're small pieces of a larger picture. I've learned from many different teachers over the decades. I have teachers from Japan that have taught me a certain way. From the Togakure Ryu school that we teach, there's a certain way. From the Kuki Shinden Ryu, I've learned from Katori Shinto Ryu. There are so many different sword schools out there, and a lot of them overlap the techniques. Obviously, if they've worked in the battlefield, they'll work. So a lot of schools back then stole techniques from each other because they just worked. They were valid. And I've gotten rid of certain techniques. There are certain things I will not teach in my dojo because I believe them to be obsolete or misrepresented, because back then they were wearing armor. And to do swordsmanship in armor is completely different than if you're dressed in a kimono or street clothes. So my sword style, so to speak, is very hodgepodge. It's very potpourri. I take from different schools that I love things with, but I am not stuck in the rigmarole of sticking with an actual lineage, because I believe pieces of each lineages are valid. So my style is very odd, and I believe to be effective, or I wouldn't do it. Mike from California writes, subtle movement equals mastery. I agree, Mike. Subtle movement does equal mastery. Very nice teachings. Does this art have strength training? Is flexibility more important? Mike, the answer is yes. We do have some strength training, but it usually involves our own body weight. If you're asking my opinion, which is more important, I believe flexibility is far more important than strength. We do Junan Taiso, which is taking our body and making it more supple. And for a guy my size, I can get strong very quickly. I have the genetics. If I lift weights, even over a few hours, I can feel a huge difference. Some people, because of their genetics, can lift weight all day long and they just don't get much bigger. But if your muscles are too big in Budo, you have trouble rolling, you have trouble doing certain movements. Strength is always good, but remember, strength is fleeting. The older we get, our muscle mass lessens. We get slower, we get heavier. It's just nature. That's the way it works. You can't fight that process. You can fight it all you want, but you're going to lose. It's far more important as we get older to be flexible. So we spend time, not each class, but most classes will stretch, will do things so that our body doesn't become injured. I recommend stretching before and even more importantly after you train so that your muscles become elongated rather than too bulky. I know some really great martial artists that are little thin little people, but they're fantastic at martial arts. They're not strong, but mentally they are, but their technique is really good. And I know guys that are 400 pounds of solid muscle, and they're terrible because they think that this is what it's about. It's not this, it's this. The mind is more important to keep flexible and to build rather than the muscles. I'm not saying strength is bad. Strength is great, but as you get older, it's going to go away. So you better embrace your age and work on your flexibility more. Marcel Hubert writes, professional skills, I wonder where do you learn all of that sword stuff? Again, Marcel, I take it from many different sources. Whatever works, I'm going to steal. Shinobi. Sam Percy writes, this has always been a very difficult factor in understanding sword fights for me, for it's easy to assume that your opponent is incapable of delivering a counter strike once you have delivered a blow to them. But the fact that this was considered as part of some technique must have meant that it was of great concern. So using the sword blade to prevent the opponent's sword arm from being able to strike back with you with a clear line to your body is incredibly insightful. I agree, Sam. A lot of sword schools will say don't clash swords together. They believe in holding the tradition of keeping your blade beautiful. What they don't understand is the history of Japan. A lot of sword schools had two swords. They had a family heirloom, which was the beautiful sword that you don't touch, that you leave at home. And then they had a battle-ready sword, one that was utilitarian. That was the sword that they carried into battle. If you've read the 47 Ronin, there's a description of the guy coming back, the leader, and they said his sword blade looked like a saw blade because it was nicked so much from hitting other swords. My God, if you're in a sword fight, who the hell cares if you hit sword versus their sword? Why would I care if my blade was damaged if I survive? I don't get that philosophy at all. Oh, move so that... No. You would hit swords if you had to. Your sword in Togakure-ryu was used as a shield more than anything. So if there's a katana coming down at me and I have my sword and I need to use it as a shield and it hits my blade, who cares? I'll sharpen it later. Hopefully if I'm alive, I'll have the time to clean it up. My advice is use the sword as a utilitarian device. If you have to throw the sucker, if you have to get hit 5 times to cut the opponent, use it that way. Don't be a purist where you have to move and never touch blades. To me, it's not real. These aren't lightsabers. Justin Rivera writes on the Punching Tips video, I like the nice takedown. It's very interesting, but you would have to be very fast and precise with that. That's why we practice. We become precise by practicing 1,000 times. I don't agree with punching their punches because a good way to defend a punch is to evade. I agree. Justin's right. Not to start an argument or anything. You're not starting an argument, Justin. You're just giving your opinion. Would punching them be effective in a street fight? Yes is the answer, Justin. From my experience, if someone is punching you, of course you want to avoid their fist, but if there are times where I can use my fist to punch their fist out of the air, depending on the angle, I wouldn't want to punch like this. Stupid, you break your knuckles. But if you change the angles, like in our Koppo Jitsu where you attack at a 90-degree angle, it's extremely effective. I've had really good boxers coming at me, and as they punch, I angle off and I hit them with this Shikanken or this cat's paw, and they're like, ah, where did that come from? It's all about intelligent angling. It's not about brute force against brute force. I won't win over a boxer. But if I shift and I hit at a different 90-degree angle or even a 45, your bones are not aligned to take that type of punishment. So to answer your question, yes, avoid the punches is best. But if there are times you have to punch the punch in the right context and the right angle, go for it. It's a vicious technique and it works. Cater Endless writes, I'm curious what Ryotoshi means. How did you come about that nickname? My middle name is Richard, and when I earned my 3rd degree, Mr. Hayes gave me the warrior name Rio Toshi. What he does is he takes the middle initial of your middle name, which in my case is the letter R, and he thinks of a name that will apply to who you are as a person. He knows me well. He's known me for a long time. Ryotoshi means Knight of the Clear Blade of Truth. I like it. It's cool. It was a good name. Mr. Hayes told me he named me Ryo because the way that kanji is written, it means truth, telling the truth, cutting through the BS. And he always thought that I had the ability to cut through all the bullshit and get to the real answers to things. So Toshi is holder or warrior of, or the blade. So Ryotoshi means warrior or a knight of the blade of truth. So that's what my name means. So I try to keep it truthful whenever I can. These warrior names are cool. They mean nothing on the mat. They mean nothing in a street fight. They're just an honorary title that my teacher gave me for my dedication. But I'm still trying to live up to that name because there are times that I don't tell the truth. I'm trying to live up to my title, so to speak. It's meaningless, though. It's like saying Sir Anthony Hopkins. He's still just an actor. DJX Chen writes, what about defeating a double sai? There's a video we did that's very popular that has like tens of thousands of hits. With what we're doing is we're using the sai to defend against a sword. A sai is an Okinawan weapon. We do not technically use it in our dojo. It's more of a kobudo weapon. Although I love the sai, I've had them since I was a kid. There's something called the jute, which is basically like a prong with one fork coming off it, and it means the power of 10 hands. That's from Japan, and of course before that from China. The sai is from Okinawa. It has 2 prongs. It looks like a trident. Very cool weapon. You've seen it in the Ninja Turtle movies. What this person is asking is, what do you do when the guy has 2 sai? How do you defend against that? Again, to go back before, I just practice more. We start with 1 sai, and then we move into 2. You have to start with the keyhole and the basics. The advanced stuff comes to those who haven't quit, to those who are earning the right to learn the deeper principles of Budo. I am not going to teach advanced stuff to beginners because, first of all, it's too over their head. They don't understand it. And you can't build a story without learning the alphabet. So every time I step on the mat and you see a video posted online, it is us, it's I and my class going through letters of the alphabet. Each hour class is one little letter of 26. Today we're working on B, tomorrow we'll work on D, next week we'll work on R, whatever the letter is. We can't start to form sentences, paragraphs, and short stories until we train year after year. Then we start to create. Just a few more. I have pages, but I'm just going to go through a few more. Let's see. Board fan Gerude writes, sometimes the old ways are the only way when modern techniques and weapons are impractical or useless. There will always be a situation where new conventional techniques cannot work for one reason or another. You sign your own death certificates. Do you agree? Yes, I agree with you, board fan. There are times where I take techniques from our kata, our books, our ryuha, and I throw them out. I think that some of the techniques that we do are completely impractical in a modern self-defense fight. I'm not saying I don't appreciate them, but we do not wear armor anymore. We're not living in the Sengoku Jidai period. We're not living in the Edo period. We're living in 21st century America, in my case, or wherever you live. People do not fight the same as they did back then. A punch is not always just a punch. Americans fight very differently. Everything's hooked. Everything's close. Everything's get you to the ground. You have these small little blades. We have pistols to worry about now. We have dirty bombs to worry about now. We have all kinds of strange things that do not apply. So if you think I'm going to do a kata that involves two armored people using naginata in a street fight, it just doesn't work. So yes, there are times when, in our school at least, we take techniques and push them aside. We'll work on those techniques to find the principle, and I always try to find the principle. But a lot of the times I take from the techniques what is practical nowadays. I don't disrespect them. I'm just using what is most likely to be seen on the street. Jester the Zombie writes, you don't use the tachi or the nodachi on foot. They are believed to be cavalry weapons. Not true, Jester the Zombie. The tachi, the long sword, was used on... First of all, we weren't there. So for me to assume history, I'm wrong too. But don't assume that long swords were only used on the horse. They were not. From my studies, they were used on and off the horse. If I was going into battle with a 5-foot sword, it'd be best on a horse. That would be optimal. But there are times I'm going to fall. And if I have a 5-foot sword, I'm not going to say, oh, this is designed just for the horse, and throw it away and pull out my little dagger. I'm going to hold that sucker on the battlefield. So the tachi and the nodachi were used wherever they were utilized. And again, we weren't there. So to blanket statement something about history is incorrect. Arctic Gator writes, excellent video. My knees are blown out, so I simply can't kick with the nice high snappy kicks like I used to be able to. So it's nice to see good applications on sneaky kicks to set up the opponent for fight enders. You're right, that's regarding a kicking video we did last year. Taekwondo and sport arts are very different than what we teach. We teach Budo, which is a warrior art. It's meant to kill people. It's meant to maim. It's meant to hurt. So the samurai and the ninja and all the schools I've seen from years and years ago, because they wore heavy armor, they couldn't kick high. Imagine someone like a stormtrooper outfit or Darth Vader trying to do a high crescent kick to someone. He'd fall on his ass and die quickly. So we don't do those high sport kicks because they're not practical in a street fight. The higher you kick, more likely someone's going to grab you. You're leaving yourself completely off balance doing high kicks. If you're good at high kicking, go for it, and I applaud those people who can kick high. But the samurai scrolls say you destroy the root of the tree. You kick from the waist down. You break their knees, you break their ankles, you do things like that. You off-balance them with these movements. Tai sabaki was used a lot in kuzushi. Taking the opponent's balance was much more desired than trying to kick their helmet off. It was impractical. So I agree with you, Arctic Gator. You don't have to have great knees to do this martial art. You need to just practice on the mat with people and you'll get better at kicking. Ed Kumar writes about sword cleaning. My sword has some sap stuck to the blade. How do I get rid of it if it's quite firm? I don't know the answer to that. I've had a lot of blades ruined because I did cutting with them and I didn't clean them. So if you go to my sword cleaning video, you'll see some suggestions. Sap is really hard to get rid of on a blade. Sometimes your blade is going to stain and remain that way. Just live with it. If you get sap on your blade, wipe it immediately. Use sword oil or something to cut the sap. But if you cut any type of plant outdoors, it's going to leave a sap or a poison or some sort of liquid on it that will be bad for the steel. So if you don't clean your blade right after you cut, you're going to have troubles. You're going to have stained blades. I kind of like the stains on blades. I think they give them character. They kind of leave a memory for me. Oh, I remember cutting that pine tree or whatever it was. So if you have sap on the blade, don't worry about it. Just have a sappy blade. I'm going to skip that one because we answered it. Why don't you have more subscribers? One of the better instructors and channels I've seen besides Kasim Zugati and a few others. We are getting more subscribers, Uzi. Every day the subscriptions go up because I think we're doing some good work here. Again, remember, what you see on our channel are just small snippets of a larger picture. 2 weeks ago, I taught 27 classes in 1 week. I average about 20 to 25 classes per week that I teach here at my full-time school. That doesn't include a seminar. I did a seminar last weekend in Indiana. We teach all the time in different areas. What you're seeing is one little snapshot of a huge movie. So when you see a video, don't ever assume that that's all we do. A lot of the times we film on Wednesday evenings because it's quiet in the dojo. We don't have an audience watching us. There are less people, smaller classes. I tend to film more because if the class is too big, the camera person can't move, and we don't like a lot of audience members because they make a lot of external noise, so we turn the stereo off. It's much more quiet, and I can teach more concentrated. You're not going to see me filming a class with 25 people in it. It's just too chaotic. And for me to get to the details of what I want to show, tends to be a Wednesday night Budo class. But thank you for those subscribing to our channel. We really appreciate it. And we'll see our subscriptions grow more. Daniel Cardenas writes, do you guys have a Facebook page so I can follow you? Yes, we have a Facebook page. Just go to Facebook, type in the Dojo Martial Arts. You'll see it. And you can subscribe and like us there. I tend to put stuff on Facebook of events, like we have a kicking special event coming up the end of this month. We have graduations, we have seminars that we do at our school that are much longer. Some of our seminars are 2-3 hours long. Check Facebook, and of course the dojoinc.com is the best place. That's it for now. This is too much yakking, not enough attacking. I hope this has answered some common Q&A questions. There are many more I could answer, but I don't have the time. So this is a good start. We'll do another one of these every couple months when we get enough good questions. Thank you for watching our channel. Thank you for writing the questions. Thank you for being involved in what we show here. Our school is unique. It's by no means perfect. We're always striving with every class that we do to get a little bit better. We realize that we have a lot of mistakes that happen, and we're trying to fix those. Again, I'm a teacher, but I'm always a student first, so I learn every single class. Today, I just finished a class an hour ago, and I learned something new from a student that's only been here for 6 months. And I'm always learning, and that's the excitement of martial arts, is it never ends. You can never be too good at this stuff. You know, you get good at one thing and you fail at another. You think you're good at something, and then someone clicks a bulb and enlightens you, and you're like, oh, I'm stupid. Why didn't I know that? Why didn't I learn that? YouTube is a wonderful place to pull knowledge from all kinds of different people. And I love watching other martial arts. I appreciate every one of them. I love watching other teachers and other students and other videos. I learn a ton. It never ends, and that's the love of Budo. It's something I'm going to do forever. Well, until I'm dead. Hey, thanks for watching. You guys have a great day. Continue your training. Please remember that books and DVDs and videos can never supplement getting to a school and physically getting on the mat. You cannot actually learn martial arts really well unless you're physically doing it. Only by practicing will you get the muscle memory. So I highly suggest, wherever you live, find a teacher, find a school in your area. Come move here. I just had 2 calls this week, someone from Philadelphia and New York. They want to move here or at least come and train at our school for a week. You're welcome to come and train at our school. We'd love to have you. Life is short. You have to actually buy the plane ticket and set the goal, or you'll never do it. I'm heading to Japan this fall, this winter, so that I can get more of my training in too. It never ends. It's a circle. Good luck, my friends. We'll see you next time.